I'll echo what's been said in other presentations today as well. So there's a number of reasons why we might want to control dog populations. So this could be to reduce the impact the dog populations have on public health, to improve their own health and welfare, and also to reduce the impact that they have on wild and domestic animal populations. And so it's important for us to therefore carry out dog population management and to understand their long-term effectiveness and therefore guide future dog population management. So the aim of our project, the Strays project, is therefore to determine the effectiveness, efficiency and the sustainability of 3 different dog population management methods. This includes culling, sheltering and catch-neuter release. So in order to achieve this aim, I've been collecting data in 3 focal countries, in Bulgaria, Italy and Ukraine. And we've been collecting various different types of data, but today I want to talk about the data that I've collected in Italy and Ukraine on the dog population size and demographics. And I want to talk a little bit about how this fits into a systems model. So I've been collecting data in 2 locations, in Lviv in Ukraine and in Pescara in Italy. And both these locations have a history of dog population management. So there has been catch-neuter release efforts in these areas and also sheltering. So I've been collecting data on dog population size, the age and sex structures, and in Ukraine, because the dogs are ear tagged after they've been caught, neutered and released, I've also been collecting information about the neutering coverage. We've also been collecting information about the health indicators, and you'll recognize some of these from Ellie's session yesterday. So this includes body condition score, the prevalence of injuries, and the prevalence of skin conditions. So dog population size is an important indicator of the effectiveness of dog population management. It tells us the direct impact that dog population management is having on that population. But it can also be used as a proxy for other indicators of impact, such as the impact on public health risk. One way of estimating the size of a population is through mark-recapture. And this method allows you to answer the question, you do this by identifying individual dogs in some way. So you can use, for example, some sort of marking such as spray, or by photographic identification. And each day on the surveys, you work out what dogs you saw the day before and what dogs you didn't see. And this allows you to estimate the capture probability. So in our study, we use photographic mark-recapture, and that allows us to identify the individual dogs through their distinctive markings. So to put this a little bit more into context, this is my fake study area. And these are roughly about 2 kilometers squared. And in our survey, we have 1 surveyor who records the dogs on their phone. And we use the Animal ID app to record this information in an accurate and quick way. We also have a second observer who photographs the dogs for their individual identification. So in this area, I have my dogs in random locations, and the surveyors move along the study area together. And here the dogs turn red to indicate that they have been observed. And as you'll see, some of the dogs will remain black, and this means that they have not been spotted during the surveying. We also use the definition of a free roaming dog. Therefore, if a dog is on a lead or if it's in someone's yard or garden, we do not record them. So the surveyors move along the study area, and you'll see that some of the dogs have turned red and some remain black. We then survey again on a consecutive day, and I've mixed up the dogs to show what would happen in real life. And as the surveyors move along this time, the dogs that they see once will turn red, and dogs that they see for a second time will turn purple. So again, the surveyors move along the study area, and some of the dogs are red to show that they've been spotted once. Some of the dogs are purple to show they've been spotted twice, and still some haven't been seen at all. And so by knowing the number of dogs you spotted on survey 1, survey 2, and we recommend you carry out mark recapture over 3 days, and by knowing the dogs that you saw multiple times, you're able to work out a population estimate. So this is the basic principle that underlies all mark recapture. And this specific example is what we call a closed mark recapture. So with a closed mark recapture, we're able to estimate the population size. And if you repeat this, you can compare and show whether your population is increasing or decreasing. But with closed mark recapture, we assume that the population is closed both geographically, meaning that we assume that there is no movement of dogs, migration or immigration or emigration out of the area. And we also assume that it is closed demographically, meaning that there are no births or deaths. There are methods, so it is important for us to understand not only what size a population is, but also how that population is changing. So this includes the amount of recruitment through births, immigration and abandonment, and the amount of removal through deaths, emigration and adoption. So one example of an open mark recapture is the Pollock's robust design. And with this, we have primary sessions, primary sampling occasions, which are widely spaced. And between these, so this is the primary sessions here. And between these, we assume that the population is open to the influences of recruitment and removal. And then within those primary sampling occasions, we have our secondary sampling occasions. And between these days, they're very tightly spaced over 3 consecutive days. We assume that the population is close to the influences of recruitment and removal. So with the Pollock's robust design, we not only can estimate population size, but we can estimate these rates of recruitment and removal. So this is what we've been doing over a 15-month period. And with ours, we had 5 primary sampling occasions, and between these sampling occasions was a 3-month interval. We missed out January because of the extreme weather in Ukraine and in Italy as well. And we had 3 days of secondary sampling occasions. So the Pollock's robust design is able to estimate these rates because it uses logic to estimate what we call latent variables. So these are variables that you're not able to measure directly. So if you see a dog in a study population, you can be certain that that dog is alive and that it is in the study area. However, if you don't observe a dog during a survey, it might be that the dog had died. It might be that the dog is in the area but simply not observed during the survey. Or it might be that the dog is no longer in the study population. So using the Pollock's robust design and mathematical models that underlie it, we're able to estimate these different probabilities of the dogs being in one of these states. So for example, during our secondary sampling occasion, so this is the 3 consecutive days, if we see a dog on day 1, we don't see it on day 2, but we see it again on day 3, we know that the dog was in the area, we just simply didn't observe it during the surveys. And then zooming out to our primary sampling occasions, which are more widely spaced over the 3 monthly intervals, if we see a dog in any of the 3 surveys in our first sampling occasion, we know the dog was definitely alive and in the study area. But then when we come back 3 months later, 6 months later, and we don't see the dog again, it could be in one of these 3 states. It could have died, it could be there, but we didn't observe it, or it could no longer be in the study population. However, if we see the dog in any of those surveys following the initial survey, we rule out the probability that the dog had died, and the dog therefore either temporarily emigrated out of our area or was simply not observed during the study. So to put this into a bit more perspective, we have here the blue area is the study area. So this is where the surveys are conducted. And then the grey area could be the wider population. So for example, the city population of dogs. And with the Pollock's robust design, we can estimate the rates of recruitment into the city and into the study area, and the amounts of emigration out of that area. So over the last 15 months, we have uniquely identified 53 individual dogs in Italy and 182 individual dogs in Ukraine. We saw in both locations that there was a sex bias towards a higher percentage of male dogs. In Ukraine, on average, in our study areas, we saw about a 37% neutering coverage, and we saw a high prevalence of the normal body condition score, so this is a 3 on the 1 to 5 scale. We also saw quite low prevalences of both injury and skin conditions. So in our study, we estimated that an individual dog had these probabilities of moving from outside the area or surviving. So this is a probability that an individual dog will move into one of these states between our primary sampling occasions. So in Italy, the probability that a dog will be recruited into the population was around 25%, and in Ukraine this was slightly higher at 38%. The survival in Italy was around 81% from one sampling occasion to another, and in Ukraine it was around 77%. The movement of dogs out of the study area in Italy was around 26%, and in Ukraine this was 22%. And the probability of observing dogs in these locations was quite similar, at 33% in Italy and 31% in Ukraine. We also estimated the population size, so this is just in our study areas. We've not extrapolated this to citywide estimates. And we estimated a slow decline in dogs in Italy from 41 individuals to 24 dogs. And in Ukraine, this moved slightly across the sampling occasions between 84 up slightly and back down to 84. So these are the results from our Bayesian Pollock's robust design model. And we're going to be, this assumes constant parameters, so we're going to be adapting this slightly more to introduce time variance and other factors into the model. So these rates of recruitment and removal will feed into our systems model. And part of that systems model involves a stray dog population. By using a systems model, we will identify the dominant flows that maintain the population at that level. So you can imagine this like a bathtub. So the birth rate increases the population and fills up that bathtub, as does abandonment and immigration. And through emigration, death, and adoption, that bathtub decreases. So this is important, and identifying the dominant flows are important because different dog population management methods affect these flows differently. So with catch-neuter release, we affect the birth rate. With culling, we affect the death rate. And with sheltering, it's a special form of emigration from the stray dog population into either a shelter dog population or an owned dog population. So my main take-home messages today are that logistically, if you're carrying out closed mark-recapture surveys, it is quite simple to change these into the Pollock's robust design, and that allows you to estimate these important parameters. We've also shown that you can use photographic identification to identify individual dogs, and we've introduced systems modeling to investigate dog population management. I'd like to acknowledge the Strays team, some of who are here today, and this involves Vera Foten International, the University of Leeds, where I am based, and the Italian Institute of Animal Health in Abruzzo. We also collaborate with Animal ID and the Humane Society International. Thank you very much.